Welcome, everyone. We're missing, unfortunately, one of our panelists, George Kangos, will not be attending, and Spyros Artavanis Tsakonas is also joining soon. It's a great honor. It's actually a historic gathering of these men. We just heard how ChatGPT has mentioned practically all of them. And we could dedicate the entire session going through everyone's CV. I'll try to be very brief for sake of time because there's so much to learn in this 1 hour. We have with us Stelios Papadopoulos, chairman at Exelixis, formerly at Biogen and Regulus, co-founder of Exelixis, Anadis Pharmaceuticals, Cellzome, and Fondation Santé, among others. We'll have, not yet, Spyros Artavanis Tsakonas, who is professor emeritus at Harvard University, former CSO of Biogen, and co-founder of Exelixis, Anadis, Cellzome, and Fondation Santé. Spyros Simeonidis, co-founder and managing partner at COS Biotechnology, and co-founder of Delsona Therapeutics, and former board member of Regulus Therapeutics, and in the board of Fondation Santé. And, of course, Kleanthis Xanthopoulos, chairman and CEO of Shoreline Biosciences, and co-founder of Anadis and Regulus. An exceptional panel of global leaders following the theme of our discussion about Greece 10 years from now and the vision for global leadership. While my role will be to guide the conversation and spotlight their insights, I come here to this panel representing a different field in biotech, that of biotools, as co-founder of Microfluidics and currently Chief Scientific Officer of INTEGRA Biosciences in Microfluidics. So our focus will be on therapeutics, naturally, given your background, but I hope this conversation highlights the richness and interdependence of biotech disciplines such as diagnostics, beyond therapeutics, synthetic biology, biomanufacturing, among others. You heard the name of the same company mentioned across everyone's affiliations, and that's actually only small part of how they know each other really well. It will be easy for me because I think they just can be led on their own to discuss. They have worked together in many past lives, co-founding and actually most excitingly scaling epic companies, some of which you heard. And not only that, but actually mentoring each other, most importantly, and even investing on each other, which is something we would love to see more success entrepreneurs doing with other fellow Greeks. We heard Nikos Kirpidis saying in his talk how Greeks don't work well together. Well, this group here is an exception. They work well together, really well, and have created enormous economic value, as we heard, from innovation. So we're here to talk about entrepreneurs and leaders in Greece and what we can expect out of them in 10 years from now. As opposed to the US, here in Greece, problem solving is not restricted to the, yes, we're welcoming Spyros too. Yeah, I introduce you. I was just saying that your laser focus problem solving has created enormous value in the US, but here in Greece, problem solver entrepreneurs have to do beyond that, not just focus on the technical and the commercial risks, but also fight a less supportive environment for the scale-up of their companies. So still, on a positive note, entrepreneurs are the ultimate problem solvers. We have infinite energy resources, we have bold visions, and we are all in. So we would love to learn from you in this session. What are the leadership skills and what is it? What is your secret sauce? Not only what will not work, but most importantly, what will work for us to be best prepared to thrive. And with that, I'll start with my first question, which is about how your paths have intertwined, and specifically the mentor-mentee relationship that has spanned from academia and research all the way to entrepreneurship, even philanthropy. So I'll let this be a popcorn. Whoever wants to start first. discussion? Yeah, Kleanthis.
Yeah. I should start. I guess it's appropriate that I would start. First of all, for me, it's an amazing thrill to be around these three guys who have taught me a lot in multiple capacities. The first person that I knew of was Spyros as a student. I was hearing of this great guy, the great geneticist. So when I met him for the first time through Stelios, I was like a kid meeting Messi. It was an amazing thrill, and then to get to know the kind of person he is, it was incredible. The mentee-mentor relationship for me is one way. I'm always the mentee. 23 years ago, my wife's uncle said, you're leaving academia and you want to do an MBA, you should talk to my friend Stelios. I had no idea who that was. So then I called Stelios and he said, I see that you played soccer in college. You should come to this meeting of our. I think I had overstated my ability, so he regrets it since then. But he said, there's another guy you should talk to, Kleanthis Xanthopoulos. So I have my notes from my conversation with Stelios from 2002, I think, where I had Kleanthis' old cell number, who I ended up meeting down the line as an analyst. When I had made the move to Wall Street, I covered one of his companies, Anatis, who was sold. Then I was an analyst again when Regulus, Kleanthis' idea, with the help of Stelios, was built. Ended up being an investor and a board member at Regulus. So for me, it's, I'll stop because I think the people you really want to see is these three guys who, just say, represent excellence, brains, and working together, something that we say we don't have in Greece. These three people are, role models in academia, in finance, and in business. So I'll pass on the microscope, not the microscope anymore, to Kleanthis.
Thank you. First of all, I'm distressed because ChatGTP only 1 out of 10 times says that I'm part of the prominent Greeks. So we got to train that better. But look, leadership is incredibly important. Leadership transmission and experience is incredibly important for any ecosystem that one wants to establish in Greece. Now, we're blessed and lucky to have a genetic material that somehow is looking for this kenotomia. It is in our genes, and truthfully, and then it can be cultivated epigenomically. It is. Now, we debated this long time ago over many bottles of wine, of why, how come in a country of, at the time, 30,000, 50,000 citizens, in ancient Athens, you saw such a tremendous amount of innovation that ultimately changed the history of the Western civilization. And if you really look at this, is generation after generation, either via osmosis or direct mentorship, and education and deep friendships based on respect and knowledge that cultivate that. So we do have, even if many of these genes are silent now.
Because we all want to impress our mother. That's the
whatever it is, let's use that basis because it's distinctive and unique, which is why you see on the per capita we are much higher represented than many other ethnic groups. Now, you also have to be lucky. My luck came when I met these two guys. And unlike, I didn't have an uncle in the United States, but I knew how to pick up the phone and call Stelios and said, look, I'm consulting for a company that I wanted to be sold. They asked me to help them sell it. So Stelios says, oh, you're Greek and you're Pontic and you play soccer? Come to my office. So that was 40-some years ago. And that was the basis of an enormous relationship of a mentor to a mentee to deep personal interactions that are vibrant to this day and continue to grow. And from Stelios, I was exposed to Spyros directly and indirectly through the academic world. And I was just telling one common friend here about the story he said at my wedding, which I'm not going to repeat, or maybe I should, just to show you the enormous amount of intellect. Here I'm getting married with the love of my life, and Spyros stands up and gives a little talk and says to my wife and to the guest, Gelin, I know you're in love with this Greek god, but if he turns into a goddamn Greek, give me a call. Thankfully, it hasn't happened yet.
Thank you. This is great. Just highlighting how deep these connections are and how they unfolded over years of doing business together. And in the industry you are, it's often an industry marked with fierce competition, clinical trial failures, difficult, really difficult and high responsibility burning fires all the time. So in these setbacks, scientific or commercial, how did your values as leaders influence the leadership and innovation and each other? Can we have one example, or whoever wants?
My example will come from academia. The world of startups. We started 3 startups together, and that's how I met Stelios. It was a long time ago, early 90s. There you go, 1991. Biotech was, you couldn't even spell biotech at the time. And somebody said, if you want to start a company, which we did, based on some discoveries in our lab, you should talk to Papadopoulos. So I went to Stelios, I put my tie on, went to Stelios, and we hit it. I mean, the chemistry was there. And since then, we have been... I
did speak in your absence about
the
foundation before.
You did?
Yes, I gave an example.
Okay, good. So I think that, leadership, you said about leadership and failure. If you're not ready to fail, you can't be a leader. In academia, in the biotech world, anywhere, all right? Even in the shipping industry. If you are not ready to fail, you can't do anything. You have to be able to fail. Failing is, and this is something that as an academic, I teach my students. I provoke them to fail. Provoke them in the sense that telling them that they should not be afraid. So that's my answer.
May I say something? The business we're in, most of the time the important decisions are about a particular project. Do I continue the project in light of some setback? Do I abandon it? Do I redefine it? And in my mind, the decisions as to what to do have not so much to do with leadership, but with experience. Because the toughest things, like I said, is easy enough to say, kill your failures soon, bury them at night, But the fact is, great discoveries are never linear. They don't just happen along a path that's predetermined. They have the setbacks, lessons learned, continuous reevaluation. So knowing, but not always, you do fail sometimes, many times. So knowing when to stop and when to keep on going forward, I think it's just a matter of experience. Always a little bit of luck, but leadership is demonstrated by making the right calls and the tough calls. Sometimes the good call is a tough call when it comes to personnel, firing a bunch of people, shutting down some things. So experience is critical.
Well, in reference to drug discovery and what we do in biotech, let's just make sure we all understand what we do is extremely difficult. And because I was a mentee of Stelios, I'll share some data with you, because he's a data junkie and he puts everything together in a perspective that educates us. in the 120, 130 years of pharmaceutical and biotech industry, we have developed less than 3,000 drugs worldwide. Now think about that. Now let's superimpose the amount of money we're spending, the amount about $250 billion in R&D with today's dollars. So amplify that to see how much money is going into to try to go against all odds to be able to develop a drug. So from discovery, from an idea, to a preclinical, before you actually enter the clinic, your rate of success is 0.01%. So 1 out of 3,000, 1 out of 5,000 projects are going to get to the IND stage. Once you get into the clinic, to the market, your chances of success are about 10%. It's going to take you 12 to 15 years to get there, and the average cost, based on a tough study back in 2016, Stelios, 2.6 billion sunk into that investment per drug. Now let's put all of this in a perspective of understanding why is it so difficult to do what we do. So if we don't learn, the number one thing we should learn is how to accept failure, because we're going to fail. It's science, it's statistic probability much higher than success. And it's the experience, this is where I disagree a little bit with Stelios, but it's also the leadership. It's what culture you infuse to the team of people you're going after to war with, right? You build a team and you go to war because you want to break that and you want to succeed and you want to make sure that they always keep their shield in a way to protect the people to their left. Because I'm counting that Spyros is going to be having his shield to protect me. That's the culture that you need. And you got to infuse that from very early on to make that team strong enough to accept failure so that it could ultimately be successful.
Great, thank you. We talked a little bit about the past and how you know each other and the values you share and have taught one another through mentorship. I want to focus a little in the present, and we actually heard great news from our Prime Minister today. I know that you have all made public statements about how strategy and capital have been shaky in Greece when it comes to biotech. Specifically, Spyros, Stelios, and Simos have recently dedicated a considerable amount of their time to try and change that and propose and implement strategy without requiring direct government investment, which is really important. And today we heard good news, in theory, provided it gets materialized. So how does that feel, just in the very present moment?
We have been fighting for 5 years to persuade the government that they need a common ground, an eos horus, as we said, and unsuccessfully. So much so that I resigned my position because I thought this was a dead end. However, I think the seeds that we implemented clearly started producing something. As I wrote to the Prime Minister, this was music to my ears. Now, of course, the devil is in the details, and it depends how it will be implemented. Am I skeptical? Damn right I'm skeptical. Will I try to make it happen? I will. But I think that this is a very good start. Finally, they understood something that not only me, I mean, a lot of people have been writing, have been fighting, and through ESETEC. I don't know if Nunes is here. Is he there? No. I think he couldn't stand. He couldn't stand me criticizing him. I think that's what it is. But I hope that they will give the chance to do it. It needs studying. It needs a lot of work for this implementation. Having a a new ministry, it's a non-trivial job. But we have the expertise, a lot around. When I say we, I mean the Greek scientific community. They all wanted that for a very, very long time, far beyond 5 years. I mean, they all wanted to have something like that. And maybe, Nectarius, when he talks later, he can talk about it. But it's something which we all want. Of course, the question is how it will get implemented and the people who will implement it. I mean, it is critical that they don't take Kleanthis as the minister, but they do take somebody else.
Don't look at
Who
me.
knows, all right? So, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, I think this is critical. This is critical. And the history is not very good.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Look, the one very important point is we use in all of our discussions all these buzzwords: high technology, information technology, data science, innovation, biotech, healthcare, life sciences, health sciences. The strategies we need to implement to advance any and all of those are quite different. What it takes to create an environment of innovation in biomedicine is very different from data sciences. So we should get to think a little bit more deeply into the specific plans for each one of those things. And more than anything else, we should understand the distinction between what it's like to create a robust, rigorous, basic science environment, and then superimpose on that the innovation, startup, commercialization capabilities. Without the science in biomedicine, you cannot have innovation. It's as simple as that. So that's going to happen in academia. As I've said many times, scientific innovation in the lab and innovation commercially, they deal with each other. They don't live together. One hands over to the other. And please, capital is not the problem. Capital has no country. Capital goes where the action is. If we have something good to offer, money will come here. Let's not worry about this. Let's build up the fundamental scientific infrastructure of this company. Let's make sure the good scientists stay here. Good scientists from abroad who want to come back. That's the answer to this issue. And then we'll worry about the rest.
And just to emphasize that, to amplify it, I should say, the basic science is the mother of invention, of kenotomia. Otherwise, we're talking kenotomia with an epsilon, not with an alpha iota. Okay, so it is absolutely true. It's absolutely true. We need to get our universities, our researchers who are sweating to work in an environment that is not conducive. We need to amplify that. And it's also one other thing that people don't realize. And in spite of 5 years of bitching about it, it was not accepted. The connection between research and higher education. Yeah, it's not an accident that MIT and Harvard and so on are excellent universities giving market-worthy degrees, and they are also research institutions. These two things go together. You cannot have research in one ministry and higher education in another. Higher, I mean university education. So help us. Shout.
This bridges me perfectly to my next question, which has to do a lot about strategy that you both mentioned. So global biotech is influenced by geopolitics, supply chain vulnerabilities, ethical debates around gene editing and personalized medicine. So how can Greece navigate these complex dynamics and carve out a place to position itself in 10 years from now?
Maybe Greece shouldn't be focusing on that, right? Because we are a very small fish in a very large pond. So what can we do instead is be what I call strategically opportunistic. What are we really good at? We have the drive, we have the energy, we're going against all odds. So what can Greece, adjusting for our size, for the capital that is currently infused in basic science. So what can we do to find a way to bridge that gap? I think there's a lot of lessons to learn from what the Israelis have done, for example, with equal size or smaller actually than us, but tons of connections in the United States and some in Europe, and transmit that back and forth knowledge in a very effective way. I think there's a big opportunity that we were discussing last week in what is happening today in the United States, where the decline of the US may give an opportunity to China, and by extension to Greece. And what do I mean by that? China had a policy to compete at that level of biotech being identified as a key project in the 5-10-year plan. And what you see in the last 10-15 years is that basic science publications are now more coming out of China on an annual basis than the United States. More compounds are being discovered and developed than in the US. So much so that some of you have seen that the administration in the US is trying to block that now, transfer clinical programs from China to US companies. That may give an opportunity opportunistically to us. Can we look over, can we utilize some of that enormous amount of knowledge base that is coming out of China, is looking for a place and potentially develop it? Just a thought.
Look, if I can add a point, I showed a slide where I said when you get involved in innovation, you have to know the entrance competition. Just as importantly, you need to understand the emerging competition. Kleanthis made a very good point. I'm convinced 10 years from now, this unquestionable leadership of the US in innovation in biomedicine will turn over to China. China is the big force here. He already gave you the statistics. So, as we try to think about having a role in global biomedicine and innovation as Greece, we don't even think about the emerging giant, which is China. And that's an important lesson.
I want to dive a little deeper into what you said about Israel, for example, as an example. Are you referring to having the ties to the American universities where some part of the work of the entrepreneur, some departments are in Israel, let's say, or in Greece, and some are in the US? Yeah, and to follow on further, so our Greek tech companies have demonstrated this to be a success. There are a lot of examples, even unicorns, where the technical team and the CTO lives in Greece, and the commercial team and the CEO live in the US. Do you think that's feasible in biotech? And
I'm hoping certainly that this is, and what I think the insight that Simos and Alex had in their cost funds, and I know there are a couple of other funds in Greece that are thinking this way, that could potentially bridge that, right? There's an investment that has, and Simos used to talk obviously about that, but I'm very pleased to see that now you start, quote unquote, forcing that issue. But that's exactly the way I see it.
Yeah, obviously I'm biased because that's the thesis that Alex Dzukas and I started COS Biotechnology Partners with. That's the idea. Having had the opportunity to learn from and witness what Stelios and Spyros have done, I'm cautious, and I'm trying to temper my enthusiasm. We're in a space that is inherently extremely difficult to succeed in. that is science and drug development, and we have the country-specific issues that Greece has. Again, maybe because I'm slightly younger, I'm still a little more optimistic, and my partner is even younger, and he's even more optimistic. He's part of the Brain Regain. He left a very successful Wall Street career of 15 years in the US to relocate here a year and a half ago, before we even had a company. He moved his family and his kids here. And I feel the same way. I feel very optimistic that, with everything else that we know as caution areas, we have the very strong Greek diaspora in biotech, both in academia and in industry. And I believe we have very strong human capital in Greece that's here, and I'm referring to the new generation, the new graduates. We were hosted by ITE like a month ago, and we saw some very promising, brilliant young people at the PhD, master's PhD, postdoc level, that I think if we had set up, and when we set up areas where they can work, I think they're going to be successful. Finally, we have really strong expertise, people that are with hands-on experience, like Kleanthis. Obviously, he's on the management side, but his partner, who's sitting in the audience, that has gone, he was recruited to go to Shoreline in San Diego. I think people like that can be a strong way to, or a great way to provide this transplant of knowledge that we have there. And these are people that some of them want to come back. They definitely want to see Greece succeed. And I think those components together can lead to a success. I don't think, as we said earlier, we're not going to be the world's great power in biotech in 10 years, but in 10 years, we can have, our goal, Alex and I, goal is to have a small number of viable biotechs doing R&D, doing early stage research. If we have one good success story, that would be very helpful because it will bring more capital. But, we need to today start investing in basic research. If you don't have that, you're never going to have biotech. Biotech was started in Cambridge, Mass, and in San Francisco because these are spin-outs from Harvard and MIT in Boston, and Stanford and Berkeley and Salk in San Diego. So I think this can happen here. Stelios.
There's one issue that I think it's worth emphasizing, and it's the perennial issue in Greece is that we're small. We cannot do everything, of course, all right? Which means that we need to have a strategy. Strategies are very tough because I may get money and the Kleanthis may not. So this has to be implemented by a government that has the vision and the toughness to go ahead and support selectively but smartly based on professionals, not on bureaucrats, because that's what's happening. A bureaucrat doesn't know what is important and what is not. No matter how good a bureaucrat is, they think they can, but they cannot. They have to ask professionals, people in the field. And the other thing is that I think we can be singular, if you will, and that's based on quality. The issue of quality is the major thing. If we do something, no matter how small, of extremely high quality, then we leave a mark.
I'm looking at the time. We have time, but I just want to pick Simos' brain a little bit without revealing all your investment thesis. But I guess as an investor, what excites you and you find to be realistic to fund and scale in Greece in the field of biotech?
That's a very easy question. Thanks for putting me on the spot. I'm joking. This is a very good question because we're going to start investing in the next couple of months, and if I'm being frank, I think there's very little biotechs in Greece that we could invest in today. I think it will hopefully will be different in a small number of years. However, today we could invest in companies that are part of the biopharma value chain, like in the pharma services sector, which is one area that we're focusing on, where the things that we have today, that is the good human capital, and that, by that I mean biologists, engineers, biostatisticians, things that we have available at a relatively good cost compared to the US, for example, and to Europe. I think that's something that can happen today. You can start investing, and these are companies that can produce revenue, if not this year or next year, and you can see growth. And I'm saying that as a finance or investor person. I'm responsible to the people that have given me money to invest. So I can't say, give me $10 million, and in 10 years, I'll make Greece a better place to work. That's not what they want. They want to see returns, return to their capital. So I think that's one area where, I'm not a fan of the buzzword AI. I think it's been overused and misused. But I think AI will play a big role in drug discovery, drug development. It will be part of everyday life for biotech. So that's another area. There's not going to be an AI company that develops drugs that's going to become the next, Genentech. But I think our angle of AI, meaning having good tech background, good engineers, good biologists, computational biologists that will help interpret that technology. I think there's another area you could invest in, and finally, you should. We want to put some seed investments in select projects in different labs. We're not going to put a lot of our capital there because that's a very high risk proposition. But I think planting the seeds there to do some of the work, and at the same time try to bring in and transplant the technical expertise, the higher level technical expertise that exists in La Jolla and in Cambridge. I think there's going to be opportunities there in the next few years to move forward in a good way.
Great.
Let me add a little something again. Simos made a very good point about... Οπτικά ή ακουστικά? Simos made a very good point about pharma services. Early on in one's thinking about company formation and innovation, the romantic notion is to discover something new. As you get older, you realize the challenge in innovation is to build something that makes money. And once you go past that emotional state of looking for something new, and you want to build something that makes money, all sorts of avenues open up. There is obviously the center of our industry in biomedicine is novel drugs that save lives, reduce pain, cure diseases. But for those to go from lab to market, lots of different businesses come into play, offering services along the way. This could be good businesses. And in fact, a lot of these good businesses can be built with a minimum amount of equity. So if you find the appropriate professionals, let's say it's a medical marketing idea. Somebody needs to create marketing materials, for a company to promote a new drug. If you have some clever people who can use omni-channel and other capabilities inexpensively compared to counterparts in the US, that's a business. You can build with a little equity and you can have decent returns on equity. It won't be a unicorn. Let's forget, anytime I hear the word unicorn, I get upset. Let's just stop thinking about that stuff. Let's think of solutions to problems that exist where we can offer the opportunity to build something to make money. That's the business we're in.
And speaking of making money, we mentioned, all panelists pretty much mentioned how great the human capital is in Greece. Perhaps in biotech, there is not many examples of making money, And I can attest to that as a biotech entrepreneur. I found it very difficult to make money and would like to keep improving at it. So when, Simos as a VC or each of you as a candidate advisor or board member or even angel investor meet a Greek entrepreneur in biotech who aspires to have a money-making business, of course, what, beyond the content and the idea, what are you looking at in terms of mindset? I want to particularly ask, what would you like to not see in terms of Greek mindset? So, for example, my problematic mindset I'm trying to get rid of is trying to please everybody. So, I would like to hear from all of you.
I will say something that will upset you all, and you will never invite me again. And it will certainly upset even my co-panelists here. I just don't think we're that special as Greeks. We keep on thinking that we are just the cat's meow. Guess what? Thank you, Spyros. Guess what? Every small country you go to, they think they're special. Every part of Greece you go to, they think they're special. Look at that program on Sunday, Kyriakis στο χωριό, whatever they call it. Whatever village they go to, they got a special kind of cheese pie and a special dance. And, we're like it. You point in special, yeah. So, we're good, but we're not extraordinary. And the last thing is this mythology about το ελληνικό εμπορικό δαιμόνιο, lose that. Lose that. We're good. We're hardworking, good people. Some of us better than others, but let's get real.
Yeah, well, I clearly disagree because I made the opposite statement. But I want to titrate it, right? I didn't say we're extremely different than others. I said there is something genetically and potentially epigenetically that drives us to find solutions, right? And we can adapt some of the way things are developing in Greece to be smarter and create that ecosystem. I want to remind a few things. The San Diego biotech community that Stelios helped establish indirectly by being there very early on and cultivating that interaction with entrepreneurs started with the monoclonal antibody technology that you saw that was now patented in the UK. And the first application was a diagnostic. It was bought very quickly by Eli Lilly. That company was Hybridtech. And that was what germinated the entire ecosystem. And San Diego is relatively small compared to the other hubs. It was way ahead of its time from Boston, only second to the Bay Area. But now you're looking and there's 600 companies. That's fine. Yes, so I'm coming to that. So what did you have? You have an enormous amount of excellent, per capita again adjusted, academic institutions. I think there's no one here disagreeing that basic science is the alpha and the omega of the innovation. But you also had the other components that make up a healthy ecosystem. And that was entrepreneurs, the leadership you talked about, the drive, and the capital that came in. Okay. Now, I mentioned China. What did China do? The first unicorn, very successful company that we know was pharma services. It's WuXi, right? They didn't discover any new molecule. So I think what I'm gravitating towards and what we discussed internally is that that's maybe a good way to start. Utilize the potential homogeneous genetic population of Greece, get involved in clinical trials, provide some pharma services. But that's not enough if you're going to look for a 10, 15-year vision. Look at then how do I de-risk that very difficult process of drug hunting? Maybe go after validated targets. So you take a huge chunk of an unknown, or maybe even import something that is early, but then be able to develop it here much more effectively and cheaper because the human capital is here. But I do agree with Stelios. We shouldn't have illusions that starting tomorrow and in 10 years we'll start from scratch and we're going to build a unicorn in biotech. That's not going to happen.
I'm, by definition and by conviction, not a determinist. All right. So genes give bullshit. Sorry about that. But yeah, as far as epigenetics go, yes, that's because of our mothers. that's what the epigenetic pressure is in Greece. It's nothing else.
So we agree at 50%.
50%, fine, all right. So I think that, that's and don't forget, we're talking about Israel, which is it's an intellectual powerhouse. Whether you like it, whether you don't like it, it's a fact. And they know how to leverage diaspora in a way that we don't do it. We don't do it, both economically and intellectually, all right?
But
now,
that was my point.
No, fair enough. Yeah. But you look at Portugal. We were talking with Nectarios before about Portugal it was way behind us, and it's way ahead of us. Forget Sweden and Austria and what have you, and Germany and what have you. Portugal, for crying out loud. They are ahead of us. They are ahead of us.
I mean, look, we keep on mentioning as examples of excellence by small countries, usually two countries, Israel and Ireland. And I think there's a little bit of misunderstanding of what those examples represent. Israel, notwithstanding the extraordinary success they've had, and it was mentioned in a prior discussion, I think by Nikos, their great success has been very much in defense-related industry discoveries that brought about capabilities in cybersecurity, lots of other things. They're certainly better than us in novel drug discovery and biotech, but by no means a global force. I mean, there is a drug beta interferon and Copaxone that were discovered in Israel essentially, but that's not a very big force. Ireland, people keep on saying incorrectly that the success of Ireland in being a hub for manufacturing has to do with they have invested early on a lot in life sciences. Wrong, completely wrong. The secret of Ireland had to do with transfer pricing, low corporate tax rate, and the ability to domicile patents for drugs in Ireland. And therefore, when you have a manufacturing business in drugs that's about 10% of the ultimate price of the drug, there's 90% of gross margin. That gross margin has to be taxed. If you're clever about your transfer pricing in the life channel of the drug, then you can place most of the value added in a low corporate rate environment, which is Ireland, and then put your facilities there and your plants. It's not that they're great biologists or great geniuses. They're very good professionals, don't get me wrong. And the presence of manufacturing there has given a boost to their sophistication as professionals in the life sciences industry. But it's not like they're great biologists. It's the corporate tax rate, which is, by the way, no longer something you can do effectively. And don't go far, the one that taught the world how to do this was Singapore. 40 years ago, they started something like this. So we got to be very careful when we throw examples of what we should do to be like that. Oh, Ireland, a small country. Look at them. Well, look what they've done. Not easy.
Thank you.
And one last thing, if I may say, I may find out people who would like me for this. Sometimes people say, "Oh, you've been successful. You must be very competitive." And I say, "I'm not really that competitive." Now, Spyros said something else. Spyros said about wanting to make his mother proud. Now, let me tell you my thing. I want to keep shame away from my family. That's why I keep on working. I don't want to embarrass them. It's not that I want to make them proud. I just don't want to embarrass them. Simos needs to speak to this. He's the ultimate mama's boy.
He knows me too well. No comment.
Let me lighten up the space here and correct Stelios about his competitiveness. So we're in a competitive match playing football, and we're up something like 8-0. So I turn to him. I'm supposedly the captain of the team because Stelios comes to me and says, "You're the captain," and then he turns to the rest of the team and he says, "Here's how we're going to play." So that's how much of the captain. So in the middle of the match, I turned to Stelios and said, "We've beaten them so badly, we should let them score at least one goal." "No way!" He's not competitive.
Let's use some of the time to take maybe 2 questions from the audience.
They better be good.
They better be good. I see.
No speeches, questions.
Yes.
Costa.
Dialogue is safe for later. Kostas.
Κώστα, καλή ερώτηση.
Still, I have not got an answer even from this panel, though I had a great time. Why are we working in a fragmented style in all aspects? We listen to the Prime Minister saying that science, research is a separate environment from education and we need to fix it. Spyros has spent a lot of time trying to convince the government for that. Even philanthropy, we are very fragmented. I've never seen a joint effort of 2 organizations in philanthropy. So how can we resolve this? Is it in our genes?
Maybe it's our genes, Costa. No. Yes, we're not coordinated and fragmented. But people like fiefdoms in Greece. So if I have an organization and you have an organization, then it's my organization or yours. It's not, we like fiefdoms. We like, you have to be a proedros. If you're not a proedros, you're not worth it anything. All right, so I think that's part of, that is definitely part of the problem here. I've seen it in science, I've seen it in research institutes. I mean, people are very protective of their own thing, which is wrong, because it's stupid at the end of the day.
Let me offer a more benign explanation to this. Spyros and I, as I mentioned before, have created this foundation 25 years ago that regularly grants research funding to academic scientists. After 25 years, we speak in code. You don't have to have complicated discussions. We understand each other. This is not a full-time job. We have several full-time jobs away from that. The moment you start assembling a lot of different people to create something bigger, you better accept that it's going to be a full-time job to deal with the difference of opinion, the need to compromise, to find common solutions, to coordinate. And honestly, I personally don't have a whole lot of time. We spend every Saturday morning for an hour on the phone with Spyros and Fuller Chapel, executive director, every Saturday, year-round, talk about foundation matters. But pretty much then we go our separate ways and we get stuff done. Believe it or not, in 1985, when I came into biotech, I organized, the first ever meeting, on biotech for Greeks by Greeks. All the speakers were Greek, the audience were Greek. There was an organization in New York called Krikos, and of professionals, and we organized that. And then people heard about it, they said, great. So we started meeting with people from Boston, from Philadelphia, from Atlanta, to create something bigger, to do it in Greece. We spent a year discussing, negotiating, arguing, and at the end I realized half the people there wanted to use this as a vehicle to get an academic position in Greece, others for vanity, others to please their mother, and at the end, it's just too much effort, honestly. So it's just laziness on my part.
We have one more question up there.
Hello, okay. Hi, first of all, thank you for your wonderful discussion and insights. I wanted to say something before. You mentioned a lot about the biotechs and how you will invest in biotechs. I wanted to ask what happens before that. I have seen personally, through the BioStar competition and the IGEM competition about synthetic biology, that there are good projects and ideas happening, but sometimes we lack insights of people that have done something entrepreneurship, and all of you are based in the US, so what would you say we can bridge that gap, or what would you say to some projects and young people that want to create a biotech but they don't have the mentorship and the hope to do that? Thank you.
I thought BioInnovation is doing that.
Yeah, maybe I answer this briefly because I think Nikos Kirpidis has initiated another wonderful initiative, at least in the Bay Area, and we're seeking to connect with the East Coast as well. We call it the Silicon Valley Greek Biohub. We started doing some meetups just to meet who is good at regulatory, who is good at product development, who is good at drug discovery, platform development. All of the participants, we have done 2 meetups with more than 70 attendees each time. We had George Kangos and Simos Simeonidis give their some fireside chats and inspire everyone. It's shaping, so we're forming something, at least in the US, so you know how to find us, or we can tell you who to talk to. This is work in progress.
Let me just add one more point here, because there is a subtle cultural issue embedded to your observation and question. And I think part of our Greek upbringing, and we all grew up in Greece, as you can tell, is to go to school, and if you're a good student, somebody tells you what you need to learn, what you need to know, and you go and you recite the lesson, and you impress the teachers with your memory and your abilities overall, and you get rewarded. A true entrepreneur is not a good student. A true entrepreneur creates their mentorship opportunities. They find things. That's part of the challenge in being an entrepreneur, is to find where to get the access, the information, the capital, the ideas, the assessment, and not to say, well, nobody told me, what the competition is. How would I know? Well, you have to know. So I think that's a cultural thing. This is, interestingly enough, in America, if there's one thing that's unique about them, is they're really, truly entrepreneurial. They all try to invent things one way or the other from an early age and be in business.
Thank you. All right, so the time has come. We heard amazing insights. I think the recurrent theme is, let's be realistic, let's size the opportunity and also the capacity of the country, let's have strategy, right? And the most important that Kostas brought up in the end, let's work together. You're all here, that's the first step, it means you care, we all care. Now, who wants to be the proedros and not is secondary, because we are all laser focused on the same mission. We want to make it happen, we want to make the 2035 a thing. So, thank you very much for sharing your insights and for being with us.